What is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to Season 3, Episode 25 of Clips and Dip, the election special. No, I'm just kidding. We're only going to be talking about the Clippers and some former Clippers. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Oslin and William Updike. We got the full crew here for you tonight. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're watching us on clippers.com/ or youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. We're going to be talking what happened last night against the Spurs, some trends we're noticing, and then this week of ex-Clippers returning with Paul George coming in on Wednesday night. But before we get into that, it's a very easygoing day for all of us. Adam and Will, how the heck are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, managed to brave the lines at the polls, and doing good. Riding the high still off that win from last night. Got to talk with Adam on the radio a little bit. It was a good time.
It was a win. You're contractually obligated to be on Clippers Talk. I'm happy that hasn't been voided yet. Adam, how are you?
I'm good. I'm still happy about the victory in the fashion that they got it last night. That just felt like a classic Clippers win, and to do that at Intuit Dome to get their first win was pretty special.
I like it. Was it Ty Lue who called it getting the gorilla off their back? They couldn't even call it a monkey. They were like, this is too big of a thing right now.
Apparently, Steve Ballmer came into the locker room pregame and was joking that maybe this building's cursed and I'll have to to break it down and build another one or something like that. It was all jokes. That's what James Harden said.
I mean, they could have just played in the Forum for a bit while they remodel the Intuit Dome to get the spirits out of there. I think that would have worked out okay. That's a nice. We have to talk now that we're all three together. Who'da thunk? 26-point comeback led by elite 3-point shooting. Will and I were on the live. People were pretty excited, shouting out Amir Coffee, all that kind of stuff. Adam, what was your favorite part of that win? If you had to pick one thing. There's a lot of things.
The fact that everybody was killing Coach Lue and saying you have to stagger James Harden and Norm Powell at all times. And what was the lineup that won the game for him?
We're going to talk about that lineup. Yeah.
They went plus 19 in 9 minutes. I've been talking about it since like game 3. Like they've been good. And they had one bad stint. And the media, the first question I think he got that night was, did you ever think about putting James Harden or Norman Powell back in? And it was a rough one for Coach Lue. That was an unbelievable question after that loss to OKC. So I was very happy to see that he stuck to his guns, and that's the lineup that won it for him.
Yeah, it was a really good Ty Lue game. I thought overall he rode the hot hands when he had to, stick with them. Will, has anything changed? What was one of your favorite things now that we're one day removed from such the thrilling victory?
I mean, just the bench overall, but Coffee obviously in particular was absolutely incredible. There's no way we win that game without him, and that's kind of going to be the formula if this team is going to beat is going to continue to win games. Like you're going to have some outlier performances. I think in addition to getting consistent stuff out of your stars, and we got less than consistent stuff out of James Harden. And we were able to turn our fortunes in the second half, which I think is kind of the opposite of what we've seen thus far in the season. Like a lot of strong first halves and then sort of not great execution. So it was great, but specifically the bench for me was what really got it done.
Yeah, the building the lead and then kind of trying to keep our legs formula did not work last night. We got smoked. That first quarter was terrible. Literally probably the worst first quarter they'll have. They're not going to score they're not going to score less than 14 in a quarter. Again, I don't think. Knock on wood.
Adam's skeptical.
This offense is it's had its struggles at times. I mean, I don't know.
That's fair.
They won't do that while giving up 40 maybe on the other end. That's my hope.
That was the most surprising part. The offense, you're like, wow, the offense isn't playing well. The defense looked a little sloppy in that first quarter.
I thought they were really bad defensively to start off the game. Like, finally, my worry was, the offense has broke the defense. Like, they're giving in to the fact that they can't score on the other end, and now it's really affecting their defense because that's always been a concern of mine that, it's easy to start the season like that and have all these principles and say, we're going to be the hardest playing team ever. But then you start to get a little bit tired. Shots continue not to fall. It just becomes a grind on offense, and it can get to your defense. And that's what it looked like in the first.
Yeah, but they were resilient. They did the old Clippers thing, right? That the people miss, which was fight back, as the kids say. Will, you mentioned kind of Harden having a spotty night. This kind of goes into the trends I think we're noticing. Harden is doing all he can for this Clippers team.
You wish it was a little more efficient, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right. 21, 9, and 10 on 38% from the floor and 29% from three.
Don't worry, the season legs are coming, guys. I heard we're casuals for not realizing the season legs just got to kick in. They're coming any day now.
Highest usage rate since 2014, 2015. How are we feeling about this just in general?
What's the minutes load like?
Let me pull
2014, 15 to now?
Because the defense, we saw some flashes of really good defense last night. That one sequence specifically that everyone was losing.
Oh, where he had like 6 deflections on a single possession. He was like a cat when they like start batting at something.
100%.
I still thought.
Sorry, the minutes per game, 35.1, which puts him at pretty low. I mean, it's not in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 seasons he's had.
Okay, great. So still keeping the minutes low, usage high. That's understandable. Tell me a way that his usage can't be high when he's on the court without Kawhi Leonard, like with no Kawhi Leonard on this team. Like, because I can't think of one. If you've got a better idea, I'm all ears.
Decoy.
All ears.
We just stick him in the corner. No,
I had an idea from a guy last night in the chat who said they should bench him and he should be coming off the bench, and that'll keep him.
Was that
was the only downside of the bench performance? Is we were getting some questions too, like, does this team look a little bit better when Harden's on the bench? No.
It's like, guys,
no, it does. It really doesn't.
Y'all realize that as much as I'm praising that second unit with Big Zoo, they're going up against the other team's second unit, not the other team's starters. Harden's going up against the other team's starters. There's a little bit of a difference there.
So how is it? Do we just have to hope that it kind of keeps going? I would say exactly like it is, with the efficiency being a little spotty, the assists being there. We're having to live with the second most turnovers per game of his career so far. Like, this is kind of what it's going to be.
Yeah, and I expect the efficiency to pick up. I mean, that's always been sort of a knock on James. I just feel like every single year we hear, oh, he's in the best shape of his life. And then at some point in the season, it's like, oh, I was playing my way into shape. So I think it's a mixture of both things. And you're
right. I'm just like, I'm not even
trying to bag on the guy, because it's like, it's different when you're in your 30s, man. Like you can't
mid-30s.
You can't stay ready at the same at the same level of performance that you could when he was like contending for MVPs. It's completely different. So I'm definitely not bagging on him here. It's totally understandable, but it is also a very real thing. Like, he is going to play his way into shape a little bit more. And I do think that when that happens, we will see an increase in that efficiency.
Yeah, I think there's something to season legs kicking in, because even he mentioned it, but I don't know if it's going to get significantly higher. Like, okay, he went 3 of 6 from 3, I think, last night. I do think his 3-point shooting will go up, and he'll end up this season like around 35% from 3.
Yeah.
So for that to happen, I guess he's got to get on some heaters here and there. It's still only a 7-game sample size. That will also bring up his field goal percentage when he starts knocking down more threes too. I just don't think it's going to be, crazy efficiency or some of the stuff we saw last season during the 31-game stretch where he was playing great and everything was about efficiency with him and Kawhi and Paul George, because he's got to do so much more right now without Kawhi and Paul George. It's just too much to ask. And even though I do think, the leanness that he came into this season with, how trim he looked, he's still 35. Like, you could be in great shape, but you're still older. Like, it helps, but it can only do so much, I think.
And he's a party in 35. You know what I mean? He's a
Oh
party
yeah, I
35.
mean,
Been living hard.
he's got some city miles on that bad
Yeah,
boy.
he's got some city miles on him. Well, you mentioned his 3-point shooting. He was 3 of 5 last night. The game
3 of
before that,
5.
he was 2 of 9, which is like absolute stinker. He was 2 of 12 versus the Warriors. Every other game, he's been at 30 or percent or above. So it's like the variance hopefully evens out, but I think those
2 of 12 is nuts, though.
2 of 12 was horrible. Yeah, that was bad. But we won that game. And then another thing.
So you're saying when he's worse, the team is better?
The volume
No.
king.
I've fallen into the trap. How much longer do we think can Norm keep this up?
Longest streak is this. It's the longest streak of 20+ point games in his career, correct?
Yes. 25% or 25 points per game on 64% true shooting, which if you're not familiar with that stat, that is combining their field goals, 3-point shots, and free throws into a single percentage. It's very good. He's never averaged 20 points per game in his career. The most he's averaged was 19.6, which is very close.
Yeah, I mean, he's so close. I just feel like we talked about this all season last year. Like, Norm is a guy who can waltz into 20 points. Like, it's not that surprising. Just, his usage and minutes are completely different. And with down 2 all-stars, it's so much more necessitated. So I think that it's possible for him. I mean, he's been close enough before.
Yeah.
19.5. I'm rounding up on that, baby.
He's even better.
Yeah, to me, he's had a 20-point average season. So I do expect that to be, I expect it to be at least that.
Yeah, my only concern is, I don't expect the efficiency to be this high all season long, where he's at 45% from 3 right now, 51% from the floor. But it could be high. I think over 41% from 3 is very possible from him. He was at 44% coming off the bench. It's just different now being a starter, going up against starters. So I'm good with everything Norm's up to right now. There are no issues at all. I'm very happy for Norm and the production that he's given this team. And he is backing up the addition by subtraction talk that he had at Media Day.
Yes, I love
the
that.
Starting role is new. Closing is nothing new for Norm.
This is true.
Hell
this
yes.
is true.
Yes, I like that.
Playing more defense also new, but
had some good free safety work last night against the Spurs.
It feels like he's always had a bit of a, standout defensive play in every game. Like he may not be great all the time. There's down moments, but he makes a play here and there that can really help you out and get you in transition.
Timely plays. Dime Dropper had a tweet. He said, what's funny is Norm is averaging 25 points per game. Almost none of it is off of him creating his own shot. It's just it's just incredibly efficient. He's here to get.
But that's perfect too, right? Like with the increased defensive role, that's great. Having him do less to get to that 20+ points, I think is what more can you ask for?
And that's why it's so efficient. If he had to create for himself, you wouldn't get the efficiency lines that you're getting right now. It's Norm curling to his right. It's Norm on a catch and shoot. It's Norm crossing the lane and putting up the little floater. Like a lot of it, is generated through offense or from looks from others. And Norm just, playing within himself. I love seeing it. And Chuck is frozen as hell. He's back. But now I can't hear Will. What the hell?
He's back. Everyone's back. Everything is fine.
Oh no.
We're all fine here. How are you?
I was just wondering, they mentioned the pick and roll talk earlier in the season. Have we seen Norm run much of the pick and roll yet? I'm not saying he needs to. I don't mean it like that, but that was mentioned in the preseason.
Again, though, that's kind of the opposite of him not having to do a lot to get his own shot, right?
His best pass seems to be the kick out or wraparound once he gets to the basket. And instead of going up with it for a layup out to a 3-point shooter or to a big and zoo. He's capable of that, but he's just still not a great playmaker.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be. Because again, he's here to score the bucket. He's in a heightened Lou Williams scoring-wise role. Lou, again, wonderful passer in the pick and roll. But
another one of those things, though, like the Kai Jones thing. Another one of those things that the Clippers can mitigate some of these issues with motion. And so if you can get Norm downhill in situations where he has to create, obviously that's going to be a lot better. But how sustainable is that over a 2-game season? It's probably better. It's probably better to stay the course as constructed right now.
Do what you do best, please. Just do that and do it a
Please.
lot.
I felt the please on that. Speaking of doing things that people do the best, I know Adam's going to be excited to talk about this.
Huh?
The KPJ, Dunn, Amir, Nico Zoo lineup that we talked about a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the most played lineups. Second most minutes of any lineup has 40 minutes. The next highest is 22. It's a +9. This is a +9 with Nico shooting sub 30% from the floor and KPJ shooting a ghastly 34%.
And with them going -10 in one game in that stint against OKC in 5 minutes. If they don't get shelled there, it's even better. It's been good. It's won all 3 games that they have won. That lineup has had a huge impact, and they won the damn game last night, +19 in 9 minutes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That run, was that the third?
They had a run at the end of the third quarter where they went +6 in the last 2 minutes, but they had a run to start the second quarter that got them back into the game. It was a 16-2 run, I think.
Yeah, I think Norm was supposed to check in during that run, and Ty was like, we can't do this. What do we think? Do we just stay the course with this? I know, because the bugaboo in this lineup that fans have talked about is KPJ shooting. If he's going to have that high usage, Adam, you brought up the usage stats from him. Will, what do you think?
I mean, I think last game, I really liked the way he was able to elevate people around him and initiate offense, which is kind of like, if you were on the KPJ, if you were banging the KPJ drum coming into this season, I feel like there was a lot made of his playmaking in addition to just his like high volume on ball scoring, which hasn't worked out so far. I guess I think it would improve hopefully from where it is. But getting into that sort of a role where he's able to be a floor general, especially as they have Chris Dunn playing off ball more, and I think that is the best way forward. But this lineup is kind of an encapsulation of what I thought made this roster really interesting this year, despite not having the same ceiling of talent. You have this really interesting mix of like solid vets who you know what you're going to get out of them, and then some younger guys that are kind of wild cards, but they're like established enough in their position, if that makes sense. Like they have a role, they have an identity, and I think like the combination of those two things is really interesting. It's just like kind of a blend that we haven't really had, right? Like generally things are like so vet heavy through the 2-1-3 era, which makes sense when you're a championship contending team. You want guys that you know exactly what you're going to get out of. But this involves a little bit of like spontaneity and a degree of uncertainty while still not having to worry about the floor falling all the way the fuck out, because you still have these vets on the floor.
Yeah, you still got Nico out there to help on the defensive side of the ball. Chris Dunn has been,
as advertised. Phenomenal. Like I just feel like as advertised is
everybody who's watched Chris Dunn, this is Chris Dunn. Like I know a lot of people are falling in love with him, and it's awesome to see. We said he'd become a fan favorite immediately. Like this is what he does. He's the new Pat Bev.
Do we think? Because again, there's just a lot of chatter out there. Is Ty just going to keep this going? I know, Adam, you just said keep doing what you're good at. I think Ty is just going to keep this lineup. Well, I don't think there's a change for KPJ coming. Not saying that I'm pro that, but if you've watched Ty Lue's coach teams, if things are working, he doesn't usually change them.
Like, why would he? That's why I was so bewildered by the criticism he got, and all of a sudden people being outraged for him not staggering James Harden with Norm Powell. It's like, guys, have you been watching? He hasn't been doing that, and it's been working. That's how they won 2 games. So when I heard that question from the reporter after the OKC game, I was just like, and Coach Lue got kind of irritated. He even asked at one point, have you been watching? Like, he pushed back a little bit.
Who asked that?
I forget. I don't remember the gentleman's name.
We don't need to name names.
Yeah, well, I was wondering, was it a usual beat guy?
He's there for a lot of games.
Okay.
And while I understood why he'd ask, I'm thinking in my mind, wait, guys, he's been starting with this in fourth quarters every game. Like they have played in every game, this lineup, and they have been good. And they were, after that first weekend, after 3 games, they were a +10 in 14 minutes. And they were huge against Denver and Golden State. So Like, why would he not go back to it would be the question. It blew up against OKC because Isaiah Joe went off for some three-pointers and Zoo missed some chip shots against Chet Holmgren. It's like, so I asked him pregame before the game yesterday, like, that lineup had been good for you. How do you go about it now? Do you make an adjustment or you say this lineup's been good for us? Will we try it again? And he basically said, yeah, it's flow of the games type thing. And he went back to it in their darkest hour, down 26 heading into the second quarter, and they went on a 16-2 run, and they won them the damn game. They have no chance getting back into that one if it's not for that 5. So I don't understand. Like, I think it would be bad coaching not to keep going to it until you get a healthy sample size of it not working. Right now, it's a somewhat small sample size of it working. So how do you not keep going back to it until it breaks? Like, I don't know.
Small sample size, but also the second most played lineup. So it's like he's using it.
40 minutes in 7 games isn't necessarily like, well, it's a small sample size because the season's early. 40 minutes in 7 games so far, it's not nothing either, you know?
Right.
And I like how Will put it. Like, there's almost like guardrails. You got KPJ out there as the wild card, and then you have a bunch of these stable guys around him, including a guy you can feature now in Ivica Zubac that they're finally doing.
Yeah, wow, fantastic segue. I think Adam read the breakdown. Big Zoo, Big Zoo is having a career year. I really liked, Adam, what you said last game about the field goal percentage was not there for Zoo last game. But
nobody else liked it at the half when I was like, he's 4 of 14, and this is awesome. I'm telling you guys, it's awesome.
But he got offensive boards. He had, like he was making effort plays. He cashed in his free throws. Zoo, top 5 center in the league right now? He's leading in boards.
Top 12.
I think 12?
He is. Like, I've gone through, like, there are 9 guys that are definitively obviously better than Ivica Zubac in this league when you actually go through it. It's like, but by the end of this season, who knows? Like, a lot of this is because of past experience and what those guys have done compared to Ivica Zubac. He's at 17-13 right now. I thought coming into this season, the floor has to be 15-10, and at best he could be 18-11 by the time the averages come out at the end of the season, because I'm still expecting Kawhi to play at some point, and therefore Ivica Zubac will get less touches when Kawhi is out there.
Right.
But my point with last night's game and in that first half and why I liked it so much is they didn't give in to going away from Ivica Zubac just because he was missing some gimmies when they were doubling and tripling, and then it's just Wembanyama and he's otherworldly and there's not much you can do about some of those hook shots he blocked. Like, stay the damn course. This is the blueprint. There are no other options. You have to play through Ivica Zubac. This is what we've been saying coming into this season, why he's the third most impactful guy on this team. Like, you have to roll with him now, because going away from him probably means you're going to lose the ball game. Going to him doesn't guarantee a victory, but it gives you a shot. And so even though he was struggling, I guess, even though some of those, all those offensive rebounds, a lot of it, the time it eventually led to him making the bucket. But 4 of 14 looks really bad, of course. But it's like, no, he's battling. He's fighting through it. He's not at his best. He's going up against a tough defense right now, and let him work through it. Show confidence in Ivica Zubac, because this is what you need out of him moving forward. He's not going to be perfect all the time. But you can't always – it always felt like you got this rookie treatment before, where if Ivica Zubac doesn't play well early, they go away from him right away.
Yeah.
Now, you can't do that anymore. So I was so happy for him, and he shined late, dunking on Wemby. Like, they kept him in. That he was part of the lineup that won the ball game, and it turned the game around. And I just think it's a blueprint for success for this team. You have to play through Ivica Zubac, even if he's struggling early, and he has to know that even if, because it's always felt like also over the years that if Ivica Zubac struggles early, he has a hard time pulling himself out of that, and it continues to be a bad game. He's got to have that belief also that, hey, I can turn this game around. There's still plenty of time left. So I love that game.
Yeah, well, you brought up too, and kind of Adam, what you were saying, like he was going against Wemby on defense. Like he's not going against like a regular ass center.
Oh my God.
Wemby's so tall, that poster that Zoo had on him looks like Wemby's posterizing him. That photo the Clippers posted, it looks like Wemby's dunking on. Like it's like so weird. Will, Zoo top 5 center? Currently, not like legacy wise.
No, I understand what you're saying. I still think there's some guys ahead of him.
All right. You got
Okay.
Jokic. You got Zoo.
Anthony
Giannis.
Davis,
Yeah, no, AD's having a great year, but availability.
Sabonis.
I'd put Zoo over Sabonis.
I would not.
I'm homering right now. All right, haggle, no haggle. The defense has been what we were sold in the offseason so far.
Yeah, no haggle.
Who's haggling?
That would get a hot take. Sometimes you throw up a hot take thing and no one bites. I was happy about it. I was unfortunately watching the Spurs broadcast last game. Very complainy broadcast. They talked a lot about JVG, and they were actually praising Van Gundy, which it's nice to hear the opposing team give credit to an assistant coach who I think is the most talked about assistant coach on broadcaast by any other margin.
But it's a Van Gundy. I mean, like the guy's kind of a legend. Like,
and every
his
shot,
coaching and broadcasting career,
and every shot where they pan to the bench, he looks funny. No matter
what
for
Van
sure.
Gundy does, he's always doing something hilarious.
He looks funny. Like, I don't mean that disrespectfully.
He's a character.
He's absolutely a character.
I don't know. I do think that it's really cool seeing him be like completely reinvigorated. It seems like for the sport and how involved he is. Because when they initially announced this, I was I was kind of excited. I wasn't like off the charts. But then I realized there was some article, I can't remember if it was ESPN or who did it, that talked a little bit more about what his consulting was like with the Celtics and sort of what he was looking for and how involved he wanted to be. And I don't know, I think that's pretty inspiring for a guy who's been around the game for as long as he has to have this sort of, third wind, I guess, like to his career and to his love of the sport. I think that's pretty cool.
And
third wind, I like that.
It kind of, I don't know, drops down the caricature or whatever he was as a broadcaster, having fun with Mark Jackson, and you realize, oh, this guy is also a basketball genius still. Like, there is plenty of substance here to him, because sometimes the further you get away from the game, like Shaq, I think he's hurt his own legacy in some ways by the way he acts on a broadcast, that we forget how dominant he was. Even so Charles Barkley to an extent. Yeah. And I think people start to feel like that about Jeff Van Gundy, where, it's almost a cartoon watching him do the broadcast thing with Mark Jackson, and this guy was coaching during a different time. But it's like, no. This guy is a defensive stalwart. He is a defensive savant. This is what he does. So I love seeing the old school succeed in the new school as well.
Yeah, and I think it makes things easier for Ty to just have as good and vocal of an assistant coach. You know what I mean? In that role. Is there an assistant coach of the year award? Is there like a specialist coach of the year?
Not that I'm aware of, but maybe.
Well,
I feel like whenever
there is, but you got to come over to my apartment to pick it up.
I just want to kick it with Van Gundy, dude. You want a match, bro?
Is it to a Dome Rock?
Yeah. Was it, Will, do you remember when the old Agua Caliente Clippers were just like making up awards and giving
it was a good time.
There was like best handles on the team. I can't remember what year that was, but I hope they give Van Gundy a fun made up award for the Clippers this year.
And I hope he puts a chain through it and wears it around his neck.
He would. He loves the bit. All right. Any other trends you guys want to talk about before we get into this tour of X's that the Clippers are going through this week?
I mean, I think it's worthwhile. I was looking this up the other day, and teams through the first 6 games were shooting 44% from 3 on open threes against the Clippers, which was the highest rate against any team. And it's a stat where it's open threes against everyone, and yet the Clippers are getting hit the hardest by like 4% worse than anybody else. And I think some of that is wonky, fluky shooting variance that will come down, because actually on wide open threes, they're shooting worse against the Clippers, which doesn't make sense. It's just something that can happen over a smaller sample size, like let's say 6 games to start off the season. So coming into yesterday's game, the Clippers are shooting 33% from three, and opponents are shooting 40% overall from 3. And it's like that that disparity, it is very tough to win ball games in today's league when you're shooting 33% and everybody's shooting 40% against you. I assume that is going to even out a little bit here. And San Antonio was very bad from three last night, and they're not a good three-point shooting team. And then the Clippers shoot, 51% from three. So now they're almost 36% on the season. Just they went up 3% on one game. So I do think some shooting and some numbers have just been against them, shooting variance, and that can really alleviate some of the pressure on their defense. Like even late in games, the three-point shooting has been falling against them at a rate that just isn't sustainable.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. Well, I don't like it currently, but I like it when it will even out. Will, any other trends, fashion or basketball-wise, that you would like to discuss in relation to the Clippers?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, fair. Coming up, we're going to be talking the return of the X's week at Intuit Dome. We brought the Clippers a win against the Spurs and CP3 coming through. But before that, if you're listening on audio, we do have a quick break. We got ads coming up and then talking the X's in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back into Clips and Dip. The Scott Pilgrim Clips are taking on a bunch of X's this week. They've already spoiled the CP3's debut at Intuit. Now we got Paul George returning. What do you guys think this is going to be? Like, what are you expecting from this? Because I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit divided. You know, obviously there's going to be a lot of love for Paul George, but it wasn't the most amicable of splits, especially given some of his statements afterwards.
That's what gets me, is that it's this thing where it was a very open secret that I'm not even going to call it an open secret. Philly was going to give him the max. Everyone knew that from like the beginning of the season, that offer was probably on the table. Him having a podcast and like saying his side of things does not help the fan perception of it.
Mischaracterizing. They offered me $60 million. Was no, that's an extension on top of the 50. So you started at 110.
Right. Like he does like that. It's like, come on. Like, I mean, classic Paul George, right? Putting his foot in his mouth.
While talking out of both sides of it.
Yeah. It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
I would say, I think there's going to be one of those things where when you're watching Paul George get introduced, if you want to hear boos, you're going to say the crowd was booing. If you want to hear cheers, you're going to say the crowd was cheering. I think it's going to be pretty split. I am worried about on court though, because he had a stinker of a game the other night. Bricked a long two, horrible shot selection. I'm a little worried for what he might do on Wednesday, just from a Clippers luck perspective. Adam, what do you think? Dude, if he hits the side of the backboard, the top of Intuit Dome will come off.
Did I look at the wrong video or just listen to too many people that are hating on Paul George? Because I'm pretty sure that game winner or tied and shot just rimmed in and out, right? It went and then out. Like it was really good.
That's a brick from Paul George.
Okay, that's a brick. Now he's not a Clipper. Dude might as well hit the side of the backboard,
dude. Yeah, that hit a fan, I think.
Watch your head, boys.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think? What do you think the reaction's going to be?
Oh, I think it's going to be 70 or 80% boos to cheers. Like, I don't think it's going to be a situation where people can decide how they heard it. I think they're going to hear it. And because he dug his own grave, it's his own fault. I mean, I'm just going off of what everyone is saying.
Yeah.
Of what Clippers fans, you know, the pulse of the people right now that have been waiting for this game. You know, yeah, this ain't a Gallup poll, but I'm pretty sure that they are upset with Paul George because of how he left. Everyone could get behind $70 million difference. Oh, my God. Yeah, you got to take that money. Like, that's crazy. Everyone can understand that part of it. What we can't understand is burning bridges on the way out for no reason, calling them the B team. And then his dad saying we felt like we were stabbed in the back, and Paul George basically co-signing on that. And Paul George within 30 seconds of saying, just give me what Kawhi got. Then he goes on and says on his podcast, like right after that, so they offer the 150. And I'm like, all right, now we're in the ballpark. It's like, wait, you just said, give me what Kawhi got. And now you're saying they gave it to you. And now you're saying we're in the ballpark. You're not just going to take it. I think there's too much frustration built up. Should he still get some cheers? Sure. Like I might cheer
A
him
tribute
on.
video.
Like, the
There'll be a
video is
tribute.
cool.
Yeah.
Like he still was a big part
From
of
one playoff series.
he still is a big part of this team getting further than they ever gone. Now, if Kawhi doesn't go for 45 in a must-win situation in Dallas, then they don't even get to the second round. But a little inconvenient truth there. He's a top 5 Clipper, I think, ever though. Still, I think it's easily a top 5 Clipper. So I don't know. I think there are going to be cheers, but I still think it's going to be 70% boos. I'm going to say.
I'm switching now. I'm on Adam and Will's side. I think it's going to be more booze.
Well,
I forgot
also
a
because
bunch
the
of
wall is so much louder than anywhere there, and I don't think the supporter section is going to be supporting Paul George. Like that's going to overwhelm whatever cheers are happening. The people at the wall.
That's a good point too, because if this were at Staples, I think there would be also a lot more Philly fans. I think that there would be some more traveling Philly fans or something like that. I think it's going to be 70% booze. It is the election special, so we are doing some internal polling on this.
War room.
Do you think they'll put the missed free throws against Phoenix in the tribute video? That was a low blow.
Last thing.
Dude, a beautiful tribute video, and then just
with like comical noises, like a boom,
or
slide whistle,
yeah, or just unedited footage of it, just the straight, like, just everyone's just like, what the fuck?
I just hate the fact that we do have to think so much of the negative stuff right now with Paul George when we think of him, and it's his own doing. It didn't have to be like this. I don't think people were chomping.
This is who he is, though.
Yeah.
Like, this is like truly. Yeah. I am so grateful for him coming here. He brought a different level of legitimacy, I guess, to a certain extent, in that trade and when he re-signed. But at the same time, man, I'm really glad to not have to defend this guy on a weekly basis.
He called his own play in Phoenix or in Philly today a boneheaded play. You're like, you can't say that. Like, that is not humility. If every single time if you mess up so many times, but you admit to it, that's not humility. You're just messing up and not giving a shit.
Because he thought they were down 1 and they were down 2, so he went for a 2 instead of a 3, right? That was the situation last night in Phoenix.
And he went for a 2 instead of a 3. Maybe the smallest margin you could possibly go, other than KD's shot, a 2 for a 3. He was 6 inches inside the line.
Yeah.
What an idiot. They're not going to have Embiid, though. There's going to be no Embiid because he is suspended, which I think is kind of unfair. That guy wrote some wild shit about Embiid.
I think we can all understand why Embiid did that.
I don't know if they took his credentials, the press credentials away, but I have to imagine that guy's not welcome in that locker room.
I'd be annoyed, honestly, if they took it away now. It's like, wait a second. The article came out like 2 or 3 days before the incident happened. You saw what he wrote. It was BS.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something about it, you should have done it immediately. Like, It was out of line.
Have you heard of freedom of speech? It's called freedom of speech, fellas.
Oh my God.
Thought this was America.
How are we feeling about Clippers versus 76ers?
Better after hearing, I guess, Embiid's not playing.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Maxey was playing well that other game. People were upset he didn't get the ball.
He's averaging 30.
Yeah.
Paul George went 4 of 14 in that game. That's
what I'm worried about.
He was rough. Well, I guess he was a +3 in a game they lost by 2, but individual game plus minus. I'd have to watch the game and see if he actually should have been a +3 or was that positive out there.
That's a good call.
I guess they were close. They were in the game.
And they've started off horribly. They're 1-6. They're 1-5.
Ooh, I didn't know. I thought they had 2 wins. Damn.
No, they are 1-5.
So they're desperate, which is not great.
Right. I'm a little worried about that.
But the Clippers are desperate to beat Paul George. James Harden post game last night was asked about it, and they were asked about his feelings of PG returning and what he's looking forward to, and all he said was something like to trying to get a win. That's it. Like, that rules. I really wonder, guys. I brought this up last night because we kind of speculated on this with some of the stuff Paul George was saying before he even left, before it was even official. just right after the season talking about how it went and disappointments. And then he got into that reasoning of my decision will be about playing basketball the right way, not so much about a championship. I just want to play the game the right way. And everybody kind of thought, is he talking about James Harden here? Did he not like playing off ball, even though he was spectacular in that role and he relishes in that role and he should like that role? Is basically what he's been asking for half of his career. But I wonder if there's something between those two.
Russ said the same thing when he got to Denver. He had the exact same quotes about playing basketball the right way.
He and PG are tight.
I'm looking at the Philly basketball reference page. Maxi's playing 41 minutes a game. Bro, so if our defense can be annoying to start, I like that. They're going to be starting Andre Drummond, which is kind of weirdly, I think historically, not a tough matchup for Zoo, but not the easiest matchup. He's a big fella.
You got to guard him around the perimeter. He hits those 3-pointers on you.
Dude, one of the worst Carl Chart takes. Shout out Carl Chart. We absolutely love you. That was hilarious. It's going to be interesting. I'm not really sure. Kyle Lowry off the bench is a little troublesome. It's going to be weird.
I'm looking at some of Philly's offensive and defensive ratings, and man, they're worse than the Clippers on offense. They're 26th in that area so far. Defensively, they are going 21st. They have not been playing good basketball at all. Feels like Doc is still there or something. What's going on?
Hey. All right. All of that said, I have a new thing where we've again lengthened the name of the Player of the Game award. Adam and Will, who are your picks for the Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Ivica Zubac, Norman Powell Player of the Game picks against the Philadelphia 76ers? Will, you get to go first. I made you pick PJ Tucker last time when Adam and I did the episode just by ourselves.
Great. I'd love to see Amir Coffey have another good one.
Let's do it. I love it.
I think that it's possible. I think that it's definitely possible. And like I said, we need these kind of outlier bench performances. I'm not saying he'll go for 19 again, but I would love a double-digit scoring performance and the same type of just overall effect on the game as he had in that showing versus the Spurs, because we know that he's a high-impact player. We've seen it. We've already talked about the lineup and that data. I'm excited for Coffey to have a good game and maybe even shut down Paul George on a couple of possessions.
A couple of those after the possession. Timely buckets from Amir.
Can I make a quick point about Amir after yesterday's amazing game and everyone immediately flip-flopping back to saying Amir Coffey should be starting, and now they're not saying Jordan Miller should be playing over him, which they just were after his last two games before last night?
Yes, but you can't pick him as your Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac, James Harden, Norm Powell Player of the Game because Will has already picked him as that.
I have one of those guys instead. No, I'll find someone. I'll dig in. We did go with two guesses since you were out last time, Will. We were like, hey, we get two guesses. Will's not here. I went with Jordan Miller and Bones Highland. So all this talk about Amir Coffey, and I understand Terrence Mann has not been good, guys. I was watching him closely.
Oh,
he was not, after the first couple of minutes where he hit a three-pointer right away and got them started, he wasn't looking at the basket to even think about taking a shot. Like, it's real, the funk he is in right now.
We kind of glossed over this in the game recap.
Yeah, Rousseau pointed out that I think 85% of his points are in the first quarter this season. He scored 5 all game, and they were all in the first quarter last night.
That's a hell of a stat, and it makes sense. Like, hey, well, how are we going to start this game? Tonight's the night things are going to change for Terrence Mann. Let's get him going early. And then he resorts right back to where he was after the first 5 minutes. It's been brutal. And when you have Chris Dunn and when you have Amir Coffey, I can certainly understand why you'd want those guys starting. I also think Will makes the great point that why are we so fixated on who's starting all the time? Because it's not going to determine who plays the most minutes anyways. It almost is starting to feel like, tired versus wired. Tired, who's starting. Wired, who's finishing. Or like, if you care so much about who is starting, you might be a casual. If you care about who's finishing, then you're a high-level NBA expert. So I'm not too overly fixated on it, But I understand where people are coming from just with this play right now. However, I do want to say this. Like, saying obviously Amir Coffey should be starting over him because of this one game when the same people the last 2 games were ready to take out Amir for Jordan Miller. It's like, guys, do you remember what happened in that playoff series against Dallas? Amir Coffey got benched in a must-win game 6 for PJ Tucker. That's how bad he was in that series. Meanwhile, Terrence Mann was their 3rd best player. Meanwhile, Terrence Mann shot 44% from 3 the last 50 games of last season. So we probably should put it in perspective and go, okay, it's happening again where he's getting off to a slow start, but we also have this data that shows us that he eventually pulls out of it and becomes a better player than some of these guys we're trying to replace him with for the majority of the season. So would I be shocked if there was a move that was made? No. I think Terrence Mann has been really bad, but I don't think it's critical and he's this fatal flaw that is keeping
Yeah,
them
like, is he
winning
losing us games right now? Like, can you look yourself in the mirror and say Terrence Mann is the reason we're losing games right now?
Pointing at the mirror, pointing at yourself,
Yeah.
being so mad in the morning. That's such a funny visual to me. So is he your pick for the player of the game?
Oh, hell no.
That was just an aside.
That was taking a left. I'm getting back on course.
Like, you watching this?
He needs a breakout, right? Why not against PG?
All right, I will go with him after saying that. Why not? I'll go with T-Man. And, you know,
who was going to be your pick? Who was going to be your pick?
Yeah, who are you really going to pick?
I was going to go with Big Zoo, but I couldn't. So
I
can't pick Big Zoo.
I know. I will revert back to Terrence Mann. I'm getting somebody in the starting lineup in here.
I picked Derek Jones for the game against the Thunder, and woo, did that not work out?
He's had a rough couple of shooting games.
His start to the season, I think Terrence Mann is helping him out. He's just shooting a lot better from 3 too. He's shooting 37% from 3, and he's willing to take them. I think I gotta go with Nico. And that's going to be the Nico version of a good game. You know what?
This is a great pick.
You know what I mean? Like, he's going to hit 2 threes. He's going to have one of those. He's going to have a deflection maybe when the team really needs something to happen.
He's going to get a stop on Paul George.
He's going to get a stop on Paul George. He's going to throw a oop to Kai Jones.
It's a revenge game for him against Philly.
Oh, good call. Oh, wait. No, in that case, I'm picking PJ Tucker. He's going to come back from his house, ready to play. Clear eyes, smooth brain, can't lose. 2 for 12. He's getting 12 shots.
2 4-point plays.
Bro, he's putting up an efficient 8. No, I think it's gonna be Nico.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Hey, he was right there. But you went with Terrence?
I thought you said I couldn't have no. Dude. Next time.
We can't if Nico has a good game, we'll extend it so we can only choose between like Kai Jones and Amir now.
Guys who aren't in the rotation, we're gonna get down to.
Bones. I think Bones is gonna come in. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we go watch whatever else is happening tonight?
Yeah, what is happening?
I don't know. I hope people should take a break from what's happening tonight.
Tonight's the perfect night to take a break.
Yeah. Well, if you're just getting into this podcast,
but of course, there's no basketball tonight.
I know,
but why?
There should be one game tonight, and it should be at noon.
The Presidential Cup,
dude. Yes, through the in-season tournament. Also, a rule change that I think we've discussed. I think if you play on Halloween, you should have to wear costumes.
Absolutely.
Makes it fun.
I mean, KPJ was.
That was insane. That makeup was still on his face, I feel like. That was barely washed off on Halloween.
Can I say, would it surprise you if I told you with KPJ the last 4 games, he's 17 of 40 from the floor? It's 43%. Like, you're a couple shots away from being 50% from the floor. Like, it's not. From 3, it's been bad. From 3, it's been bad.
Right.
It has been coming a little bit around his offensive game. And I think he's averaging like 6 rebounds over that time.
Someone on the YouTube pointed out his boards, which is something that Ty Lue mentioned, just in general of needing more guys to rebound. So,
yeah, I would have thought he was like 39%, sub 40.
Yeah.
Last 4 games only. Right. 17 of 40.
Hey, we'll see how he is tomorrow night.
I mean, I still thought if they got blown out by the Spurs, don't get me wrong, this could be when Ty Lue has all the evidence he needs to make some type of lineup change.
True. He's hanging on by a thread per Adam Oslin.
Will we ever see Bones on the floor?
If KPJ gets suspended, that is why they're holding on to Bones.
About the only way.
Yeah, and again, no news on that. We have no idea that investigation.
Keep asking though.
No, keep asking Adam.
We're close to getting the news.
Yeah. All right, so possibly going to do a live tomorrow night, depending what happens. Full episode on Thursday to preview yet another Clippers back-to-back. This one's kind of brutal. It's away to the Kings and then home to the Raptors, who are a very fast team, who I would not want to play after traveling the day before. Will, where can these people, the hottest topic at the office after tonight, favorite Clippers podcasts, where can people tell their coworkers?
Yeah, the most important decision you have to make tonight is which Clippers podcast to listen to, and the choice is pretty clear. It's Clips and Dip, and you can listen to that over on YouTube. You can even watch it. That's youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. You can listen to it anywhere you get your podcast. If you happen to listen over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead, leave a little rating or review. They also let you comment on episodes now on Spotify, so go ahead, check that out. And however you consume the show, we appreciate you.
We absolutely do. Adam, one positive thing for these Clippers fans before they head out to whatever tomorrow brings.
If you don't want to be a Cavs, worry about the closing lineups and not the starting lineups. Don't be a Cavs. Worry about the closing lineups. So
don't be a Cash.
I'm excited for everyone to make their voices heard tomorrow against Paul George. Because if you bought a ticket, you got the right to cheer or boo, do whatever you feel is appropriate. Just, don't take it any further than that, because there is that whole fan clause when you buy a ticket to a game. Be respectful, but cheering, jeering, all that is in play. And I expect tomorrow night to be the loudest and the most packed experience so far at Intuit Dome.
Couldn't agree more. Love the positivity. We will be
back. Get the George Paul chant going.
Yep, get the George Paul chant going. We'll be back for y'all either on Clippers Talk or live tomorrow. And as always, let's go Clips.